Hey everyone. In this video, we are going to take a look at how we can create a SharePoint test using SPFx and PnPjs function. So to first let me tell you like why it is important and why we are doing this. Because let's say in your SharePoint development, you build any web part or any SharePoint application. If you need to test it on multiple tenants or multiple environments, let's say, then you have to create those lists manually using manual entries, right? So you have to click on create list, then you have to specify all the columns. So this process is fine until your list has only limited number of columns, let's say 10 to 12 columns, that's fine. But if your list contain like complex columns, like we have some lookups, multiple lookups column, then we have 20-25 different fields, right? So it will take some time or for the manual effort for you as well to have them created manually. So the best approach here is what we can do, we can just specify every column we need, whatever the functions we have to write for those columns, we can specify directly in our code, and we can just give a option to create a list, or we can do it automatically. Let's say whenever the component mounts, we can just check whether the list is exist or not. If it is exist, then do nothing. If it doesn't exist, then we can create a columns automatically once you deploy the web part. So this is called list provisioning. There are two ways. The first one is using XML schema and the second one is using PnPjs. So my focus on this video is currently on the PnPjs, because in XML, the process is same actually, but when it's come to writing of the code, PnPjs gives a lot more flexibility than the XML one. So here our focus will be on completely on PnPjs. Then just let me tell you like what is the development setup of mine. Let me take you to the package.json. So I have already created a SPFx project. So currently I'm using Node version 18.20.3 and my PnPjs version is 4.13. So that's the latest version I'm using. And this is the class component based on the React library. So this is not a plain JavaScript component. Then let me share first the documentations with you. So I will give all the links to all the documentations in the description of this video, so you can follow along with me. So first let me tell you like there is a function in PnPjs called as, this is the import statement actually, this is the list, and here we have one function that says ensure list. So this function we are using. So first I will just explain you the documentation things and then we'll take back to the code, because if I directly jump in the code, then you might get confusing if you are doing this first time, or if you are just starting the SPFx, and if you are a beginner, then that might be confusing for you, like switching to docs and switching to code. So first let me tell you where you can find this, so you can follow along with me, you can explore it more, right? So this is the function that called ensure that a list already exists. So here as you can see, these are the just a small block of code. This line here says sp.web.list.ensure. So what ensure does is, so first it will check if the list you are creating, so let's say my list called as employee database. So it will first check that the list employee database is already exist in your site or not. If it is exist, then it will do nothing. And if it doesn't exist, then it will create the list for you automatically. We don't have to write any extra code for it. So as you can see, as we are calling this function ensure my list, so my list is the list name here, and first if the list is created, then we have this created dot created, so we get the response from it. So the dot created, so in the created we get true or false value, right? So if a list is created, then it says okay, the list is newly created because it doesn't exist earlier. If that exists, if that list is already there in the SharePoint site, then it will go to the else block. The similar kind of logic we are going to use. Then the second one is adding the columns. Then we have the imports called fields. So here column represented as the fields. So every column we create in SharePoint have some kind of structure. As you can see on the right side here, add a new field. So we have all columns of the SharePoint. So specifically I will be covering most of the columns that used in common cases. So as you can see, we have the text field, calculated field, date, time, currency, image, user. So almost every column in SharePoint list we have all the schema here. Now let me just tell you, like if I just want to add a text field, what I need to do. So first we have to import this one, because in the list we already imported this one. web is necessary for all the context related things, then here is the code for it. So sp.weblist get by title my list. So you already know, like in order to create a column, first we need to create that list. And if I go here, as you can see, this function will create the list for us automatically. So once the list is created, we already get this one. And then we have this kind of thing, fields.add text. Now just take a look at this .add text. So for every column, there's a different kind of thing. So here we have the add text. For the calculated field, we have .add calculated. Everything you see here is the same. From getting the list to .all fields, we have same, but only thing here is these name are changing. Now you see the parameter for it, add text, add boolean, add user, anything. So first we have to specify the name of that column. So it is always recommended, if you are creating a column in SharePoint, you have it Pascal cases without any spaces. So here they created my space field. So I generally what do my field, so without any space. So but sometimes what happened, like in earlier, if you remember, like if you give space, then it replaces that space with some special characters. But now if you create a column without any space, it will automatically remove that space for your internal name. So but yes, for the safer side, it's always best practice to create a column without any spaces. Later on you can change the display name, because once the column is created, that internal name is not going to change. You just have to change its display name. Then we have some parameters in it, like max length. So for the text field, you know, like when you create a text column in SharePoint, we have the max length property, that we have the 255 characters maximum. But if you want to let's say override that one, you can have the max length. And there are some groups property, like if you want to show like in which group that have. So in this video we are going to focus on completely for the basic and most useful things. So you know, like how we can add the fields. So the structure is same for everything. As you can see here, we have add calculated, we have then add date and time. Okay, now this is something for the creating the fields. Now one thing to note, that once you create a column using SPFx, it won't automatically add in the default way of the SharePoint. Let me tell you what I mean. So let's say let me take a list that has many columns. Okay, this list I will take. So as you can see, this list I have. So when I add a new item, you see all the columns are displaying here, plus all the columns are displaying in a view. If I create a column using out of the box UI. But what happened if you do created the list using the SPFx, using that function and everything, it won't automatically add these columns in this default view. You'll have to manually add them using the view function. Now there is one function that called view, this one. So this is the import statement for it. Now what it will do, like if you were to create a new view or edit a new, add a column to default to, everything is listed here, but our main focus is like how we can add the fields in that view. Now here we have this function like list.view.getById, and all these functions are there. But what it will do, when we create any column, we just have to add that fields in those view. So I think you understood all the document stuff clearly. So let's go back to the code. This is my main TypeScript file here. So as you can see, I have just removed all the boilerplate code here and just created an interface, like just to show like where we are progressing. Like once you create a list, you have to show a user, right, at what stage they are in. Then we have the state just for the loading message. After that, the construction has been generated, and the default state value is like, first of all, progress will be false and the initial loading message will be nothing. Then there is just one button that says create list, and there is one progress indicator. So once you click on it, it will show the progress. Nothing fancy here. Now let me take you the view. So this is my, so this is the out of the box text editor web part, just for displaying the information. And the only thing I have in my SPFx code is this one button. Now let's go back to the service file. So I generally what do like for all the PNP service kind of thing, just create a separate function file where you have all the service file from the PnPjs helper function. So that gives you better flexibility in terms of code readability and everything. Now in this file, as you can see, the web part context and SPFx that we have to import because we have to get the context of it. These import statements I already told you, like for the list, views and the fields. Now we have to go step by step. When you click on that button, what will happen? First, it will check if the list is exist or not. Second thing, if it exists, then it will does nothing. If it doesn't exist, it will first create the fields. Second, it will update the fields. So let's say I already told you, like first you will create a fields with without any space. In terms of updating, we can update the display name. Third thing, after these two steps are done, like edit and add and update, then you have to take all the fields and add it to default view and our process will be completed. Now here, what I did all the functions break into multiple functions. So you will understand it betterly. So here we have function for add fields, update fields and add fields to default view. We are not going to create a new view. We already have one. And as you can see in this button, I'm just calling this function says setup list. If I go to service.ts file, the setup list function, I'm getting two parameters. The first one is context, which is important. The second one is the list title. Now I'm doing it hard coded because in your application also, you will not change any list. You just have to have that schema properly updated. Just console.log, just get rid of it. We don't require that one. The first line I said here, list ensure result, sp.web.list ensure list title. Now what it will do, it will first check the list is exist or not. Now, as you can see, the else statement I have already written, copied from the PnPjs website directly. So if the list is created, what I will do, I will console.log here as well. Console.log list ensure result. Now we have to, as you can see, I have put await statement here because we can just promise all in a bunch of them and all call all the function in the one time. We have to go to step by step because if the column is created, then only we can update it, right? We cannot update the column that is not created, obviously. The first thing, add fields, update fields and add field to default to. Three function runs after one each other in a async way. In the else statement, we don't have it because this is just creating a list and updating the fields. Now, let me just take you to the add list field, update and the add fields column. So this is my code to add a list field. So first we have to get the list by title because in which list you are going to add a column, right? So that's the important step. So this function I will call, that value I will store in the list. Now here I have added a comment. So as I'm explaining, you can, if you are just looking at this code, you can directly see, okay, this is the text field, number field, everything. So for the text field, I took two text field. First one is employee name, second one is employee email. Both are maximum length of 255 characters. If you don't specify it, then no issue. It will by default take 255s only. For the number field, as you can see, I just added add number and the employee ID is my column name. Then we have the rich text about, this is the column name about, and number of line I want to say 6. So if I open the new form, then how much the height of it. Then we have the image field. So we have image field. For the choice column, we have the choices, and for the choice and multi-choice field, just give a little bit of attention here. So for the choices, we have to specify them in a array of string format. So whatever the choices I have to specify in this way. Edit format, like in what format you would like to have them appended in the form, whether you want a drop down or whether you want a radio button. So it's for the UI perspective I talk. If you have less than 5 options or 3 options, it's always good to show in a radio button. But if you have more than 5 items, good to show in a drop down. Then here we have the field type kind choice. Then we have the multi-choice field. So for the choices, we have single and multi-select options. So I took both. So the department always is going to be one department for each employee, but that employee can speak multiple languages like English, French, German, etc. So the only thing is here field type we have choice, and here we have field type kind of multi-choice. Then we have the date only field. So add date time is a function, column name here, display format. So date time field format date only. As you know, we have two kind of format. First date only and second one is date and time. But I took a date only format. But that is same kind of thing. Reporting manager, what we have user kind of field, selection mode people only, because we can select the groups as well. So if I see here people and groups and people only, but we require only people. Then we have the LinkedIn profile link, that's a hyperlink type of column. And the display format is of hyperlink, because when you create a hyperlink column, you have two display format. The first one is you can display as a link or you can show it as an image. So if I go URL field format dot hyperlink and image. Just ignore this part. I'm going to explain it later. And now when it comes to lookup list, so in order to create a lookup column, you have to have that parent list created first, right? So I have took a MSFT certification list as my parent list. I will put all the MSFT certifications, like whatever, like hundreds of certifications are there from Microsoft, right? So I will take them, I will put them in a list and just reference that list to my main employee database list. So I can specify like what certifications this employee did. So here first we have to create the list, right? Because you cannot create a lookup column one before you create that list. So first what we are doing, we are creating the lookup list first, and then we are going to take that list. And the third thing is we are going to add that lookup column, and the lookup column name is certifications lookup list ID. So once I created that list in the lookup list, so as you can see sp.web.the get by title. So in this, what I will get all the information about that list that has been created. So lookup list dot ID, so the ID of that list, and lookup field name. Like if you have multiple fields, then if you create a column lookup kind of thing, it will also ask you like in this list from which column you want to store that value. But in this list, I'm just going to have the title column. In that we have the certification listed. So that's fine for us. Now this is everything about the add function. Once the column get created, second thing is to update the columns. Now there is nothing much in that, but yes, where do you want to use it? So let's say if you want to index some columns, if you want to change the display name of them, or if you want to change some value, right? So in this case, the update function will work. So as you can see, for the text column, what I did, everything I have already showcased in place. The only thing change here is dot update. And here we have this property index true title employee name. So title means the display name of them. You can directly copy this title and paste it here, but I just wanted to show you like what different kind of things you can do. So similar way, everything I did, you can just pause a video or just take a look at this code. If you need out, you can just let me know in comments at this point, but everything is almost similar. The third thing and the last thing is to add the columns in a default view. So I already showed you like in the field section, this function to call the default view, to get the default view. So here we have the list. Up to this point we get the list. Dot default view means it will get the default view of that list. So in the SharePoint list we have multiple views, right? So if I go here, this list, this view we have. Currently I only have one view, but if you create multiple view, you have that option to set that view as a default view. So the code is written in such a way like in which view you want to add those columns. So first I will get the view, and I just have to write this dot add and whatever the column name I want to add. So one by one each. And then after the code is completed, and here it is. So let me just take back you here. Let me open the console. So in console, I am just taking you to the network tab. And now let's see what happens if I click on create a list. So as you can see, first it gives me an error because it calls the list ensure function. The list, it did not get that list. That's why it's showing the error. Then it called the function. Then as you can see, wherever the fields are here, those are creating the fields in the backend. We also get an error in the MSFT certification list because that list was not already created. So it created that list. And after that column, we have this get by title. So field type. So I'm updating all the fields. So as you can see, get by title, profile picture, language speak, hire date, etc. etc. And I'm adding all the fields in a default view. Let's go back to console. I'm just displaying the message like employee database is created, adding fields, updating, added fields to default view, and list setup is completed. Now let me take you back to the site content and we'll check whether the list is created or not. We have a certification list. So this list that has only one column, title. So there is nothing to see that. We have the employee database. So as you can see, we have all the columns created, employee name, employee ID, whatever columns we have. But remember what I told you, like if I create a column without any space, it will directly take it. But since I updated those columns, you see the display name are there different. Now if I click on add item, here you see all the columns. You can also specify whether that column is required or not. Sorry, I forgot to mention that this property is also there. As you can see, the title is required by default, but yes, you do have the option to make any columns required or you can update it. So you see the profile image is the image column, department. Then we have the language speak option. That's a multiple choice, right? I'm not going to add anything here because that's not our main focus on this video. But yes, the form is created, everything. Now let me tell you, like you might get a question like since I written so many await statements here, like why can't we just create everything in a one go? Okay, there's an issue in that. So what I did, so all these columns I'm creating here, right? So what I will do, instead of calling them one by one, I'm just going to call them in a one promise statement. So what promise does, whatever we call, it will just run them sequentially. Sorry, not sequentially, parallelly. First, let me just delete this one. So is we have employee database, then I will delete this list. Let me just refresh so that make sure we have the updated code reloaded. Okay. Now let me just hit create list. So as you can see, we are getting too much errors, too much, almost a error. Just focus on this part, like save conflict. So if your experience, you might already know like what this error is, because what happened in SharePoint, like if you call a multiple parallel request to some kind of things, then it will show you like there is already been changes because there are some changes ongoing, but instead of that first change is completed, you are just passing the second changes, but that won't going to happen, right? And you have noticed this in some time, or you can just try it out. So you will take two users, the same list you can take and the same item you can check. You can edit those items from the two user at the same time and just try to save that item at the same amount of time, right? So it will give an error like save conflict. It will directly display that message on the web page directly instead of console. So what happens is you have to wait until the one process is finished. So this function say your changes conflict with those made concurrently by another user, right? So when I say parallelly, that means concurrently. So all these columns are creating concurrently, right? So you have to wait until the one column is created, then second one, then third one. So that's why we can't use the promise statement directly here. And similar case goes for the update and the adding the columns in a default use state. Now, as you can see, like this is just a sample web part for the POC kind of thing I did. But what happens if you are doing this in any project? So when I click on create list, then there has to be some kind of loading indicator, right? Because in terms of user experience, you have to show the user like in what stage they are in. So I did some modifications using ChatGPT, like just showing the progress indicator. So let me just copy that code. And here we have that code. So this one, and just refresh this one. Let me just tell you what I did. I took one additional state called as progress. So we have the three functions, right? Add, update, and add fields to current view, right? So in this function, like let's say there are 100%. So first function will take 30%, second one will take 30, and the last one will take 30. So this kind of view we can set a progress bar. So here you can just review this code. This is nothing rocket science. This is just simple code. And here I added some logic. All the code above is untouched, so no worries about that. Only this thing I've added, update stages. As you can see, there are 4 steps, so I'm dividing it by 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now let's see what happened. Now if I click on create list, you see there is a loading indicator. So list created. I think that list is already okay. You know that we already created that list. Let me just first delete that one and delete this one also. Let me refresh it. Okay, now I will click on create list. See what happens. First, we are ensuring list. List is created adding fields. Then it is adding the fields, as you can see in the console also. Then second one is we are updating the fields. So here, and let's wait for a few seconds. Adding fields to default view. So this is the last step. And after this done, you can see the list has been created. So this is kind of the progress indicator you can show, which is best for the user experience, because they have to know like what stage. You just show the please wait and the loading indicator. They will not know like how much time I have left, like 5 minutes, 5 years, whatever we have, right? So if you show the loading kind of thing, user acknowledge that okay, I have some time at this process. Okay, I'll just wait. Because if you keep showing the loading indicator, they might see an error, because if they are not that much technical person, let's see, this will give an error, right? So, and once you hit create list, the process is started, right? Or if you refresh the page, the process will interrupt and list will not create for you, because that's happening in a runtime, right? So this is kind of thing like I wanted you to share. Also, there's one additional thing I want you to take a look at. Like this structure we have identified, and we have written the function to add, update, and delete. Sorry, not delete, add in a views. But there is one another thing called as forms. So let me just go to now there is a function called these three functions you can just learn from your side. Show fields in the display form, edit, and new form. Here what this means is you can specify like what columns you want to appear in the SharePoint form. So this is my list. Okay, let me take just any other list. So we have the new item, right? So these columns we have. You can also specify in that, like if there is any column you don't want to appear in this form, you can just specify them directly. So you can just check out these three functions. The rest of the code I will be sharing on a GitHub after some time. I will just put a link in the description as well, so you can take a look. You can download it and run locally. But first, you can just read all the documentation. If you haven't worked on PnP that much, or if this is something to you, so before reading this code, I will always recommend you to first let's check the documentation, because by the time I'm recording this video, so currently I'm using this kind of version, let's say, and if you are seeing this video like 3 or 5 months later, there might be some updates from the PnP, right? So there might be changes in function, might be changes in some kind of schema. So it's always recommended to first check documentation, and then you can check back to the code. And if you have any doubts, you can always let me know in comments. Thank you.